Hello and welcome to Meddling, a talkSPORT Olympic podcast with me, Olympic medalist Lee Taylor Mohammed, and the one and only former Crystal Palace, former Arsenal and Spurs goalkeeper, Chloe Morgan. This week, we are at the Velodrome. We're trying our hand at track cycling. Chloe, how's your cycling skills?
They are not as prolific as I would like them to be, stepping into a very, prestigious environment like this, but I am so ready to give this a go.
Now, we are at a world-class venue today, the Lee Valley Velodrome, here in the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, but we certainly need a world-class coach to get our cycling skills up to scratch. So we are joined by three-time world champion, Commonwealth bronze medalist, and most importantly, Olympic champion, Dani Rowe. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I feel like I'm with two legends here. I'm really excited to get going with this one and see you both on the track.
No, well, we'll see. Still a bit nervous about that. But first of all, what's it like being back here at the Velodrome where you won that gold medal in 2012?
It's amazing, honestly. Every time I come back to the track, I get goosebumps. It's just such great memories. The sound in here was electric. And just the whole experience, being in London, I felt like everyone was just on a high. And of course, coming away with that gold medal that I'd wanted for so long. I was only 21, but even as a young girl, I always dreamt of becoming world and Olympic champion. And I just feel so honoured to have been able to have done that in the home country, where there was just a hype, wasn't there, around the Olympics and around the success of Team GB. It was Super Saturday when we won as well.
Wow.
And then to do that alongside Joanna Rousel and Laura Trott, or Kenny now as she is, was just really special as well. We had a really incredible bond coming into that Olympics. There's just no words really. People ask me, describe what it felt like to become Olympic champion. And it's so hard to put it into words because it was just everything, to have friends and family there who supported me along the way. Sir Paul McCartney was in the crowd. He started the whole crowd singing Hey Jude when we were on the podium.
Wow.
It's just something that I'm never ever going to forget.
No doubt. I mean, what was the atmosphere like on that day? Because it gets so loud in these velodromes.
Yeah, I mean, this velodrome was built for the acoustics of the crowd leading up to the games, of course. And I remember coming in a couple of days before we started competing. We had a couple of warm-up sessions. And the first day of competition, I wasn't actually riding when I heard that British crowd roar. And there was nothing quite like it. I mean, of course, everyone was cheering other nations. But when there was a British rider on the track, it was just something else. And I nearly started crying. I remember sitting next to Laura at the time and thinking, how on earth are we gonna get up on that track? I can't even hear you next to me having a conversation, let alone try and get my head around competing on the biggest stage in the Olympics. But that crowd carried us. It was just insane, the support that we had from that British crowd. It was electric, and I think the people that were lucky enough to come to the track to see the athletes compete have all said the same. The noise, the atmosphere was just something really, really special.
And do you ever feel like sort of since retirement that you kind of want to get back into it? I mean, you talk about how explosive the atmosphere is and how amazing the crowds were. Do you ever sort of come to events and think, oh gosh, I wish I hadn't retired. I wish I'd could be back on the track and experience that again?
Yeah, I watch it and I do. There's part of me that always thinks, I'd love to be doing that now. But then I remember what I had to do to be in the shape I was in to compete. And I think, actually, I'm quite enjoying life off the bike. I still competed for 6 years after the games and won world championships. But yeah, of course, every time I, come back here or watch cycling in general, I always get that buzz and thought of, it would be nice. Maybe I'll try and make a comeback. And then think, actually, no, I enjoy this life.
Now, we have a different challenge coming up pretty soon. We'll be trying track cycling for the first time ever. It was my first time anyway. Your first time too?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, that's a slight relief. What can we expect?
Carnage.
Oh, great.
No, honestly,
Wonderful.
You'll be great. My biggest tips would be don't stop pedalling. Of course, there's one gear, there's no brakes, there's no freewheeling. So essentially, if you try to stop pedalling, you'll be thrown over the handlebars.
Oh, okay.
Can we just go back to that point?
Yeah.
You skipped over a couple of things there.
Okay.
The no brakes. Can you explain that and run that through? Because I'm not entirely sure how that it's going to work for us.
It's pretty self-explanatory, no brakes. So yeah, you have to slow down very, very gradually. I actually think it's safer than having brakes. A lot of the crashes that we see in cycling on the track, you don't come off with too many bad injuries. On the road, you know, if you're riding in a small pack, generally crashes are caused by people braking in front of you. So on the track that can't happen, which is, you know, one good thing, I guess. But it takes a little bit of getting used to. It's very, very different, the feeling, to anything you would have ever felt on, you know, a more conventional bike, which most people would have been used to riding. And then one gear. So you'll have quite a small gear put on, which will make it easier for you to keep that momentum around the track. When we were riding, the gear would have been selected by both ourselves and the team, the mechanics, as to the best gear for the event and how quickly we would want to have been riding ideally. But you'll have a nice small gear on, which means you'll be spinning nice and fast. And then yeah, you've got to slow down gradually, and in the bends you have to apply the pressure, because of course it's pretty steep, as you've both seen so far today, and you have to keep that momentum and that pressure on the pedals to make sure you don't slide straight down the track.
How steep are we talking?
I think it's around 42 degrees, so tracks vary and have different severities of that gradient in the banking, but I believe Lee Valley is around 42 degrees. You couldn't run up it, put it that way. That's quite a nice analogy. And I remember actually when I first went to a velodrome and they took us to the top of the track first and they said, right, look down at that. And I mean, yeah, if you were willing to put yourself on that bike, you probably had the mental capacity to be able to give it a good shot, but you'll both be fine, I promise.
I mean, Dani, that's kind of what you did to us when we arrived at the Velodrome. You know, if we weren't scared before, there was a kind of nervousness of looking over the edge and seeing this very sharp, steep drop. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciated that. What kind of speeds are we kind of looking at getting up to today? I mean, how fast can you expect that some novices will be going?
Well, I think both of you, obviously coming from a sporting background, you'll have that endurance and that explosive power.
Let's just
to
remember,
get up to high speed.
I'm not in training.
The gear will be limiting for you because you will be spinning pretty quick, but you'll probably hit speeds of up to 20, 30 miles an hour if you get up to the top of the banking. So you can use that banking to your advantage, because you've almost got a bit of a downhill as you come off the banking onto the straight. So we'll see how you get on.
Well, okay, let's put the pressure on you. Who do you reckon's gonna get the W today? Putting you on the spot now.
That's a lot of pressure. I've been giving Chloe a few of my inside tips. I feel like girl power.
Okay.
However, I can see you're very, very competitive.
I don't mind being
which
the
I
underdog.
Like. Yeah, we'll see. I think we'll have a few little races, maybe some time trials, some time laps. So we'll see. We'll certainly see who's going to come out on top, let's say.
Okay.
It's absolutely going to be me. Of course it is. I mean, I've already had the kind of debrief. We've kind of like gone over, you know, different tips, different techniques and things. So yeah, good luck.
I feel like you've been secretly practicing for the last week.
Oh,
as well.
100%.
Okay.
The only thing I don't have is the spandex. So
that will slow you down. Of course, the more aero, the better. I mean, leading into the games, we had an amazing marginal games team behind the scenes, which I think the British cycling team are very, very, very good at, and it's why, or partly why, when they get to the Olympic Games themselves, they bring out all this new equipment that they've been kind of squirreling away, the secret squirrels actually, they used to call themselves, because they'd be working on things like aerodynamics and ways in which they could have that edge, of course, you know, from the other nations, because it all is all so close now. So the position that these riders will get on the bike, so they'll go into wind tunnels, and then of course they'll test equipment like spandex or the lycra as we like to call it. So for the games we had lots and lots of fittings for our kit and special skin suits that we used for the games.
Excellent. So no skin suits today?
I mean, have you bought your skin suits? Have you been on eBay?
Actually, no.
I actually left mine at home. Weird.
Damn it.
What are the kind of 1%ers that you'd give us as sort of tips to kind of make that marginal difference? I mean, you can tell me later, just sort of privately.
I'll tell you later.
That'd be easier.
No,
yeah.
please share it, please. Share it, please.
I mean, here, like I said, putting pressure on in the bankings and then using the straights to try and recover a little bit would be my biggest tip. And the faster you go, the easier it is, because then you kind of got that traction with the track itself.
Obviously, when you're going round and round the track, it must get quite boring in a way. Obviously, you're concentrating on the race, you want to get your best times and things like that. It's very competitive, but it is sort of the same environment going round and round. Is there sort of something that you focus on or something that you keep in mind when you're spinning round and round the track those so many times?
It actually does get boring, you know, to be totally honest. In training, not in a race, there's just obviously so much to focus on there. You're thinking about the technicalities of the race, and you've got so much pressure to do well there. But we would train maybe 4-6 times on the track a week. We'd have double days on the track. We would have one day off within a week. But it does get boring, but you have to focus on that kind of technical aspect because, there are no breaks. We would never really be on the track on our own, so we'd be doing efforts with the other girls. So, you're just focusing on trying to get as close to the wheel in front as possible because that makes it easier to try and recover for the efforts that we were doing, really. But yeah, it did get boring at times, but that was, I guess, part and parcel of what we were signing up for.
I suppose it's part of the job in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
And how many circles would you do in an average session?
Circles.
Laps,
yeah.
Laps, my bad.
No, it is.
You can tell I'm an expert in this field,
to be
innit?
fair, I remember when we would get really, really nervous, I would go and see Steve Peters, the psychiatrist actually. And he would bring us all back down to earth because he said, guys, all you're doing is riding around in circles on a wooden bowl. And we were like, actually, yeah, that's a really good point. And we soon stopped worrying as much as we did. But a lot of laps. Because I was an endurance track cyclist, of course, we had to do a lot within training sessions to kind of almost get those kilometres in the legs and make sure we were fit enough to compete and then go faster. So I don't know, it's really hard to put a figure on it. Hundreds within a session. Yeah.
And are you not allowed to have headphones in? Couldn't listen to your favourite talkSPORT podcast while you're
Unfortunately not.
No?
Yeah, no, I mean,
Gutted.
it would just be too dangerous, really. If you were on your own on the track, then yeah, you could listen to music, but we never really were because of the event that I did. It was a lot of team riding together and different drills and different efforts that we were doing throughout a session.
And when you came into some of the training sessions, did you ever feel a little bit rebellious and think, I'm going to go clockwise instead of anti-clockwise?
Do you know what? It feels so weird if you try and do that when you're so used to going anti-clockwise. Actually, we did try it, but not within a training session, just to kind of feel what it felt like. And when I used to train at Cowshot, there was nothing in the middle. So normally there's loads in the middle of a track, whether it be, I don't know, different sports going on or things that you would hit if you tried to kind of go through the middle. But we would do sort of figure of eights, and it just felt so strange. But no, we didn't do that, unfortunately, when we were training with the British team.
All right, well, we won't do that today. We'll keep it as basic as possible.
Keep it simple, keep it simple.
Anti-clockwise for us all day.
You touched on it a bit earlier about the physicality. This is a very physical sport. You see a lot of the bumping when you do watch it at the Olympics. Does that mean that there is quite a risk of injury in this sport? Do you see injuries in this sport quite a lot?
Yeah, you see a lot of crashes in both track cycling and road cycling. I think because you're riding at such close proximity, of course, and on the track you don't have breaks, especially in those bunch races. So at the Olympic Games we've got the Omnium in the endurance side of things, where you've got timed events and then you've got bunch events, and the Madison, which I don't know if you've seen before, where you're in pairs and you're literally slinging the other rider in. So you're sharing that workload, but you have to do a hand sling after kind of every time you reach your partner again. And generally there's a lot of crashes there because as you can imagine, with so many riders on the track trying to find their partner, sling each other in, of course there are going to be crashes. So it is chaos. But again, you see these crashes happening and they look tremendous on TV, or if you're here watching in the crowd, but you generally come away from these relatively unscathed because you generally just slide down the track. Whereas of course on the road you've got the concrete and different obstacles that unfortunately you can hit, and that's when it can become pretty dangerous. So you'll be fine.
Have you sort of had any experiences with crashes yourself at all?
Yeah, so I broke my shoulder on the track. This is going to scare you now.
I don't know why I asked this question.
That was when I first started riding, and actually it was because I was going pretty fast at the bottom of the track, and there was someone that was going too slow on that banking and actually slipped down in front of me, and I just had no time, so I went straight into them over my handlebars and just landed in a way that broke my shoulder. More of my crashes were on the road. I had a really bad crash in 2014 where I was just on a general training ride with a group of people. We were riding kind of two abreast, and a guy in front of me hit a pothole that was covered in water and went over the bars, and there was kind of a ricochet effect, and an ex-rugby player who was like 100 kilos plus rode into my back and then broke 10 ribs, punctured my lung, was in intensive care. but still managed to get back on my bike. I think initially when I hit the floor, I said, and a lot of people who were at the scene said, you said, oh, I'm never going to ride a bike again. And then it was in hospital, I was begging the physio in the hospital to let me go down to the gym in the hospital with a chest drain hanging out of my ribs to start pedaling again, so it didn't take me long. And then competed after that as well for another couple of years. But yeah, it's just part and parcel of the sport.
Was there any kind of fear that you felt sort of getting back on the bike after something like that? It's quite a traumatic thing to go through.
Yeah, a lot actually. I was really lucky that I had a great support team around me where we just kind of took things really slowly to get back onto the bike, because it was something that I wanted to do, you know, compete again after that crash, and I had sights on the Commonwealth Games medal, which was the one major medal that I hadn't achieved. So yeah, we just kind of went out to start with just a long stretch of road where I didn't have to, you know, turn a corner, and I could see things ahead of me, potholes. And then as time went by, gradually started riding in bigger groups and slowly got that confidence back, and then went into the deep end and started racing again.
And what's the mental health support around, you know, sort of the physicality of the sport, sort of when you're competing, it's such a demanding, high pressurised environment, but I suppose also the mental health support when you go through something that's sort of quite traumatic.
Yeah, we were really, really lucky. And they still do have a brilliant support network within the British cycling team that you can tap into. So they really do have all the best experts, whether that's a psychologist, nutritionists, of course, physiotherapists, coaches. You know, there really was that team behind the scenes to get the most out of every individual athlete and team.
And does it make winning then so much more sweeter because of what you've been through? It must have been such an amazing experience to go through, you know, saying I'm never going to get back on a bike again, to then going on and winning medals. That must have been amazing for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I had a very up and down, you know, career. I came from swimming and running, and then British Cycling came into my school and asked if anyone wanted to try out for cycling at the time, trying to get especially more girls into the sport. And I did it to get out of a maths lesson originally, and then found myself in the British team. And my journey was really, really up and down, whether that was being told I wasn't good enough and I didn't make it onto the Olympic Academy. And then I got poached after, you know, going away and finding my own coach and training off my own back and doing well at the national championships. And I came into the British team, and then I call it an X Factor elimination process. There were 12 of us in the lead up to the games, and I was the only one of those 12 who weren't already in the British cycling system. So looking back now, at the time it was really, really hard. It was a tough journey, but actually I'm grateful for that, because I do feel like the victory when it came was sweeter, because the hard times were pretty tough.
You touched a little bit on sort of trying to get more girls into cycling. What's the kind of how diverse is the landscape in British cycling at the moment, and is there sort of work to do, or is it sort of going in the right direction?
It's amazing now. You know, the girls have got such a great chance at the Olympics as well. If we look at the talent that we've got within the British cycling team, they're picked to be very, very successul. The team pursuit girls especially, and the team sprint as well, with Emma Finucane, who is current world champion. And the team sprint, so that's where there's 3 girls, 3 laps, as fast as you can go. We actually didn't qualify for Rio and Tokyo, and now they are one of the favourites to win. So yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. And if you go back to the grassroots level now, and you go into cycling clubs, you just see so many more girls just trying out the sport, which is brilliant. You know, when I was riding, I was on my own with all the boys, you know, rocking up to my local track or as part of my own cycling or local cycling team. And now it's just so different, which is so nice to see. And because of the coverage that we've got for women's sport in general, you know, these young girls can, I always say, you know, if you can't see it, you can't believe it. And now they can, and it's brilliant, and it's going from strength to strength. There's still work to do, but we are definitely getting there, and especially in the last, you know, 12 years since London Olympics, which is what we're talking about here, I've seen a massive change.
I mean, we're heading into the Olympics, obviously, this summer. It feels like I feel inspired, in a way, to get back onto the track, to kind of give this a go. I feel like the pep talk is...
Back onto the track.
Oh, I wouldn't say that I've been doing any secret lessons at all. I'm kind of giving myself away a little bit.
Okay, I see what's going on here.
But yeah, I feel like we're kind of ready now to get going. I just want to give it a go, get on my training gear, and
shall we get our Leica on?
Give you a run
Go
for your money.
it. 3, push, 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 push. Drive, drive, drive. Pull up, push down. Stay as low as you can. Really good. 1 lap to go. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Push, 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 push. Nice. Drive all the way through the last bend. All the way to the line. Come on. So, do you want to hear it? The scores on the doors.
Absolutely.
Matalo set a blistering 49.11 seconds. Chloe, 46.38.
smashed
We have
it.
our first winner.
Smashed it.
Congratulations, Chloe.
No one's here.
Girl power.
Come on.
Congratulations, Chloe.
Oh my God, come on.
Just to put it in perspective, the female world record, 32.2.
So close.